Well, I've mixed up some darker green with Hooker's green and just the tiniest amount of alizarin crimson, which would be its complementary color to darken it just a little bit. I'm going for a dark mossy green color. I think that looks pretty good. And I'm going to attempt to do some of these really fine details on the stems and the bloom stalk. I hope it goes well. So it's a little tight and tedious in here. Just have to be patient. I'm not wetting it beforehand. Now I have put some purple in the past on some of these stems because they had some purple highlights on them. So now I'm going to go over the edge just a little bit, and I may soften those up later on. I want them to sort of blend together, but still have some of the lavender or purple showing through. Right now I'm just getting the green on, and I will do some of the final details in the end. You see that line right there? What I like to do is sort of soften that line later and blend the two of those together, but still have some of the lavender showing. I have to use a real small brush for this. Okay, you get the idea of what we're doing, and we will come back and put some more darker areas in here at the end. But just get everything filled in that you can with this mossy green color. And then there are 3 places on the stem that we're going to put some burnt sienna, some nice reddish brown. And we'll take note of that. There's one here, in this area here, and there's another little piece sticking out here. And we'll do all of the rest of that just a little bit. I'll go ahead and put the rest of the moss green in there, and then we'll come back and do some darker accents. Well, let's update what we've done so far. I've done quite a bit of work on the bottom part of the bloom stalk. And it's so detailed that each one is probably going to look a little different. But I first put in the light green, the lighter green, and then I have a dark green that I tried to keep on one side, usually on the bottom side. If you'll notice, I have some dark green there. We can soften those up later. I also finished the flowers, these two flowers, and soften the edges on the centers. And what I need to do now is basically a lot of detail work. We've got to do some work on these stems up top here. And then I need to start doing some dark purple details on the flowers. And we need to do some work on the stems. Let's take a note quickly on these stems. They're not going to look exactly like the finished painting of the picture of the finished painting in the booklet, because the booklet is an 8.5 by 11 size, and so I had to reduce and reorient these stems a little bit. So they're not going to look exactly the same as the original painting, but it's just a matter of making them a little smaller and bringing them in a little bit. The first thing I'd like to work on is some dark green, more details up here. And we also need to do some work on the center of these flowers too. I think we laid down some medium green here earlier, and I need to soften those up a little bit. And then we're going to outline them eventually with some dark green, a little bit darker shade green. These are actually some buds in here. Just going to soften those up a little bit. Actually, got a little spot down here that doesn't have the green. This just takes a lot of time to do this detail work. Put a little more purple in there. I'm going to have to let that dry for just a couple minutes before we outline that with the darker green. What we can do next is to just go ahead and do these burnt sienna little spaces. There are 3 of those on the bloom stalk. And I will probably do some sepia just to dull it down a little bit. There's like a little flower pistil coming out here. The reason I'm using such a bright color, I just want a little accent. I'm purposely leaving it a little bit redder than it normally would be. I'll dull that down a little bit with some sepia. There's also another little spot right here that I'm going to just probably do with sepia. I have to let that dry first. I will see now if I can outline some of these areas with some nice dark green. I've added a little more of the alizarin crimson to this hooker's green to get it nice and dark. I have to be careful about that. That's going to be wet. Let's see how this works. Just going to make some dark green details on here. A lot of the paintings aren't this detailed, this one just happened to be that way, so it just takes a lot of time to get all those little details in. I really wanted to soften that one up before I put the dark green on it. You see this hard edge right here? These flower buds, just outlining and accenting them with a little dark green. You can fiddle with these details as long as you like. There is something to be said, though, for knowing when it's time to stop and move on to another project. Let's see if we can get some sepia in here and we'll be done with these little areas. Actually, I kind of like it better without that. See, we can just lighten it up. That looks better. You never know when you're doing it. You just keep fiddling with it till it looks good. Let's go ahead and put the dark green, since we have the dark green out. Let's go ahead and put the middle line that goes down these stems. I'm going to turn this sideways so I don't get into the wet paint. This is going to look a little odd, but these are very unusual stems on these plants. Let's come to the other side. right, we need to let that dry before we continue on and finish off these stems. I'll see you in part 4 for the final details.